One second. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take on weather information will display in our application through web service. Okay, so let's take the first one. This is a service description. This is the first one. The second one is there, right? I'm taking this, but this is for US only. US only allows you to get your city's weather information. Okay, which is updated hourly US. Okay, let's take. I want to display this weather information. I want to display in my application. Okay, let's click on this WSDL file. So I told you, right, always the WSDL file is going to terminate with @WSDL. @WSDL is a URL. Okay, WSDL file is going to terminate with by using @WSDL. This is a WSDL URL. But see here, WSDL is also nothing but an XML file only. WSDL is also nothing but what? An XML file only. But it's very difficult for us to understand this WSDL file. I mean, we can understand, but we have to know all these tags information. What is this element tag? What is this complex type and all? We have to understand this. The whole WSDL file we have to understand. But basically, this is not the consumer part. Basically, this is the provider's responsibility. This one creating the WSDL file and all. See, if you want to get a simple description about this, if you want to get the simple description about this SOAP-based web service, the URL is terminated with what? URL is terminated with @WSDL. The URL is terminated, right? If you remove this @WSDL, if you remove this, we given a URL, we given a URL. After that URL, if you remove that @WSDL, @WSDL, if you remove and click on the enter, because it's a .NET web service, because it is terminated with .asmx, right? So it's a .NET web service. If you specify @WSDL, you'll get the WSDL file. You'll get basically this is only the WSDL URL. Basically, this is only what? The WSDL file. But it's difficult for us to understand this WSDL and all. So that's why what I'm doing is I'm removing this @WSDL. I'm removing what? @WSDL. I'm removing. If you remove this @WSDL, if you remove this @WSDL, if you remove, okay. So now you'll get the list of services you'll get. Now you'll get what? The list of services you'll get. See, a single web service can provide n number of services. A single web service can provide what? N number of services it can provide. So this web service is providing three services. One is get city forecast by GIP is one service. Get city weather information by GIP is one thing, and get weather information is another service. A single web service can provide what? N number of services. Okay. So we'll take any one web service. We'll take any one service. We'll take in this web service just to demonstrate how to call the SOAP web service from our Android application. Okay. This is one web service. It's a public web service. It's what? It's a public web service, meaning anyone can access this web service. Now I'll show you one more. Now I'll show you my current project web service URL. I'll show you. So this service is providing how many? This web service is providing how many services? Three services it is providing. Now I'll show you my current working project web service URL. I'll show you. Just give me a second. Okay, it's a public web service. Anyone can access. Now I'll show you my current working project URL. I'll show you once. Just 1 second. So this is my current working project visual file. This is my current working project web service URL. I told you, right? If you remove that, basically you'll get the WSDL means XML file you'll get, but it's difficult to understand. But if you remove this at question mark WSDL, if you remove this at question mark WSDL, you'll get the list of methods in that particular service you'll get. Okay. See here how many web service methods are there. Age calculator, assign tags, BMI save data. Basically, it's a healthcare platform. It's having more almost all 300 plus services are there. So insert chrono. So basically each and everything, because we are storing the data at the server side, directly we cannot communicate. So they given a web service they given. So we had to communicate as a mobile application developer through with this web service method. We had to make a request and that is going to communicate with database servers. It's not a dummy web service URL, it's a live web service URL. It's my current working project URL it is. So this is my current working project. We are creating one healthcare platform we are creating. Okay. So it's having a mobile application. So for this project, this is a web service methods. But it's not a public web service. It's not a public web service. It's a private web service. Meaning other people cannot access this database cannot access. Because if I share this URL, then only you can access, right? The other people cannot access this web service, they cannot access. Okay. So now here we'll create a sample application we'll create for how to communicate with the SOAP based web services. We use this get cities by weather chip. I'll specify once again. If you remove this at question mark WSDL, basically web service means you'll get like this only. Web service WSDL file means you'll get XML file only you'll get. But if you remove this at question mark WSDL, then you'll get the list of services in that particular web service. A single web service can provide what? A number of services. This is one web service method. Get weather by zip is one method. Okay, we use this get weather by zip method we use. So even for testing purpose also, here only they given the option to test. Here even for testing purpose also, they given an option to test. But majority of the applications will not provide this option. Majority of the applications will not provide this option to test the web service. That's why we are having a tool in the market called SOAP UI is a tool. What is the tool name? SOAP UI is one tool is there. Okay, let's download this SOAP UI tool for testing the SOAP based web services. There is a tool called SOAP UI. Let's download this SOAP UI tool and you can test the web service you can test by using the SOAP UI tool. See 9 million API developers and testers. So basically before going to test your web services, before going to start integrating the web service in your application, first we had to test the web service whether it is working or not. Okay. This is one tool. SOAP UI is one tool for testing the SOAP service as well as RESTful service also. Okay. Let's have it. Just try to explore this one. Try to explore this SOAP UI tool. Okay. But some web services it will provide you directly. They will provide you the testing option here. Directly you can test the application. But some services will not provide you. So if the web service is not providing, just download that SOAP UI tool and give the WSDL file as an input for that, and automatically you can test the web service. You can test. Okay. So now we found that web service is providing one service. What is service name? Get city weather by zip is a service. So what is the input we had to pass? If you pass the zip code, you'll get the response from the server. Okay. Let's take I want to get a zip code. Let's take I'm specifying US zip code. US cities and zip codes. Okay, so this is on city, Alaska, and this is a zip code. Okay, let's copy this zip code and specify here. See, we got the weather information we got. Okay, city found, state AK, sorry, state AK, Anchorage, and weather ID 13, temperature 38, humidity 48. Okay, so we got the weather information we got the weather information. Now we'll create a simple application to create for demonstrating this a SOAP based web service. So we'll create an application. Let's create an application. One second. So we'll create a simple application. I want to display weather information. I want to display. First here, we'll take the input we'll take from the user, that is zip code. We'll take input we'll take from the user, that is enter zip code. And we'll take a pin code we'll take from the user, zip code. Okay. So whenever user selects a button, we'll create a button called get weather button. I'll create a button called what? Get weather is a button. So whenever user clicks the get weather button, my requirement is I want to hit the server. I want to hit one web service I want to call. I want to call a SOAP service I want to call. And what is the input parameter for this? I want to call what? One, a SOAP web service I want to call. I want to call one SOAP service I want to call. And from the server, get the response in XML format, get the response from server. From the server, first of all, through Xml File, we'll call a web service. If you want to call the web service, if you want to call what we require WSDL, we require the WSDL. From the server, what you'll get, the response you'll get from the server in a XML format, we'll get the response from the server. So now get that response on the server in XML format and present this data here. And we'll present here what is the temperature, we'll present what is the temperature, what is the humidity, what is the temperature, what is the humidity, and what is the visibility. Like if visibility is another thing. Okay, so one is what? Temperature. Next thing is humidity. Third thing is what? Visibility. So I want to present these three things I want to present. One is temperature, humidity, and third thing is what? Visibility. I want to present these three details I want to present in my application. This is a requirement. Okay, so now we'll see how to communicate with this SOAP based web service by using KSOP library. We'll discuss now. Okay, let's create a project. Let's create a project. Start a new Android Studio project. Specify the project name or application name. Let's take my project name is SOAP Web Service Test is a project name. So I specified a project name as SOAP WS Test, SOAP Web Service Test. Next, create an empty activity. Finish. So first in the activity XML file, we'll create this user interface. We'll create in the activity XML file one text box and 3 text view components and a button. Okay. So we'll create this UI. We'll create in the activity XML file. So first create a text box. So below this text box, we'll create one button component. We'll create below this text box. We'll create what one button component. We'll create. Okay. Call get weather is a button. Get weather. I want to get the weather information I want to get. Okay. And below this text view, below this button, I want to create 3 text view components. I want to create with the large text. So one is for temperature, humidity, and visibility. We can so later we'll replace the text. Will replace. Now let's configure the click event for this get weather button and configure a hint for this edit text component. Let's configure the hint for this one. Hint is equals to enter zip code is a hint. Okay. And we create a button called get weather. Let's configure the click event for this. On click is equals to get weather. Okay. Next. So we had to create this. We had to configure the click event. We had to configure for this get weather button. Let's configure a click event for this get weather. Public void get weather is a method. So view is the input parameter for this method. View is the input parameter for this method. So now in this get weather, whenever user clicks the get weather button, our requirement is we have to call the web service and we have to get the response from the web service. But for this, first we required the KSOAP2 library we required. First we required what? If you want to communicate with the SOAP based web service, if you want to communicate, first of all we required what? The KSOAP2 library we required. A library means nothing but it's a .jar file, meaning some set of classes and interfaces they'll create as a jar file. So we require the jar file we required now. So if you want to get the jar file, if you want to get, see, just go and make a request in internet. You can find a number of URLs you can find to download this jar file. Let's specify KSOAP2 library. KSOAP2 library download. Okay, you can download from through here. You can download the KSOAP2 library, or otherwise I'll mail you, right? I'll mail you the example after the class. I'll mail you the example. So in that project also you can download. You can get the jar file. You can get KSOAP2 jar file. Just here you can download the jar file. You can download. Here you can find the download link. Download KSOAP2 Android jar file. So let's see. Let's download this jar file only. Okay. So we downloaded the jar file. We downloaded. Let's go to that folder. Okay. So we downloaded a jar file. We downloaded a jar file KSOAP2 Android 2.5.4.jar. So we downloaded a jar file. We downloaded. Next, what we had to do is we had to add this jar file as a module. I'll repeat once again. We had to add this jar file. We had to add as a module. We had to add. We discussed this concept in Android telephony package, sending an email using Java Mail API. Okay, so add first these jar file as a module, and next we had to add these module. We had to add as a dependency module. We had to add. Okay, so first in your project, first we had to add that jar file as a module. For that, just right click on the project. You can find an option called new. In this new, you can find an option called module. Select this module here. In this module, so select import jar or r. Import dot jr is there, right? Import jar option is there, right? Select this import jar. Okay, next. Import the jar file. Next. Select the browse option. Okay. Select the jar file location where the jar file is available. It's available in case of 2. Case of 2 is a jar file. Okay, this is a jar file. So we had to case up to Android assembly. Okay, we had to add this jar file. We had to add as a, not this one, downloads. And downloads folder it is there. Case up to library. Case up to library Android 2.5.4.jar. Okay, let's. But I guess this is the old one, 2.5.4. I have an advanced than this 2.6.5. We downloaded 2.5.4. We downloaded. Now the advanced one is 2.6.5. Anyway, I'll send you this project. I'll send you in the project. You can find the jar file. This is the latest jar file, 2.6.5. So we had to add this jar file. We had to add. This is the first thing. First, we had to add this .jar file. We had to add as a module. Second thing is nothing but we had to add that module as a dependency module. We had to add that module as what? Dependency module for your application. Let's select the app. Right click on the app. You can find an option called here module settings. You can find an option called module settings. You can find here open module settings. In this module settings, you can find an option called dependencies here. You can find options called what? Dependencies. In these dependencies option, let's select this plus button. We want to add as a module dependency what we want to add. Select this module dependency. So one module is available in our project case of 2. Let's add this project. Let's add this case of 2 as a dependency module. Let's add this case of 2 as what? As a dependency module. Okay. So now we have the jar file. We have the case of 2 library file. We are having now. Now we are having that case of 2 library. Now by using this case of 2 library classes, we'll see how to communicate with the web service. See, even for this communication, I created one class I created. Okay, it's not a built-in one. I created that class I created. So it's a common thing. It's a common for any type of SOAP request. It's common for any SOAP request. You had to change a few parameters. You had to change. That's it. Okay, let's see what are the parameters you had to change. So I created a class I created. Even I'll send you that Java class file also I'll send you. You can use this same project. You can use for any SOAP service. You can use the same project. Give me a second. If you want to find the Java files, if you want to find, select this app, src, main, Java. Okay, this is a class I created. SOAP request is a class. Let's copy this SOAP request class. Copy the SOAP request class and specify here. Specify in your project. SOAP request is a class. Okay. And I already written the logic also written. Request whether by zip is a method. What is the method name? So this is a class. SOAP request is a class. In this SOAP request class, I created one web service method I created called request whether by zip is a method. What is the input parameter we had to pass for this method? We had to pass the zip code we had to pass as the input parameter for this method. Okay. So now here we had to configure few properties we had to configure. First I'll remove these properties and let me explain from where we'll get these properties. Any SOAP service, the logic is same. Any SOAP service, the logic is what? Same. Okay, this is the logic. Okay, first if you want to call any SOAP service, if you want to call, first of all you have to specify which web service you want to call. You have to specify the URL of that particular SOAP service. This is the first thing. Which web service you want to call, we have to specify the URL of that particular web service. See, we found a WSDL file, right? We found a WSDL. This is our project WSDL file. Okay, if you remove this if you specify this @ WSDL, you will get the WSDL URL. Basically, this is a web service. We want to call this web service. We want to call this web service. We want to call. Let's copy that WSDL file. Let's copy the WSDL file and specify here. Web service URL is equals to specify the WSDL URL. Which web service you want to call? Let's specify the URL of that particular web service. Second thing is nothing but SOAP action. SOAP action means nothing but a single web service can provide a number of services. We discussed that one, right? If you remove this @ WSDL, you will get the list of methods you will get. What are the list of services it is providing? It is providing 3 services. GetCity for cast, GetCity forecast by zip, GetWeather by zip, and GetWeather information. A single web service can provide a number of services. Which web service you want to call? We had to specify that. We had to specify the name of that particular service in the SOAP action. Which service you want to call here? We want to call this GetWeather by zip. We want to call. So once if we select this GetCity weather by zip, once if you select that particular service, if you select, see here, you will get the XML file. You will get the SOAP XML. Okay, in this SOAP, here you can find SOAP action. You can find here. Here you can find what? SOAP action. This URL is nothing but the SOAP action. So if you select that particular service, if you select, automatically you will get what? The SOAP action you will get automatically. So we had to specify this SOAP action. We had to specify in the second parameter. Was a single web service can provide a number of services. Which service you wants to call? We had to specify that service name. We had to specify. Okay, we want to call GetCities by weather. Next, what is the next one? Namespace. Namespace means nothing but we see here. This is the web service you want to call. GetCities by weather. GetCity weather by zip is a service. And beside this, you can find a tag called XMLNS. Of course, in n number of places you can find this XMLNS. See here. Here also you can find XMLNS. Here also you can find XMLNS. In multiple places you can find this XMLNS statement. But we required after this inside the SOAP body. Inside this SOAP body tag, this is a web service name. This is a service name. Inside the web service, this is a service name. GetCity weather by zip. XMLNS is equals to some URL is there, right? This URL is nothing but what? It's a namespace. This is a namespace for this service. This is a namespace for this service. We had to specify here. The namespace of the service we had to specify. Method name. Method name means nothing but SOAP action means nothing but along with the URL. Along with the URL. Okay, method name means nothing but without URL, only to specify the service name. If you see here, and this is the service name. GetCity weather by zip is the method name. GetCities by zip is what? This is a method name. Okay. SOAP action and method name both are same, but SOAP action means nothing but along with the URL, but method name means nothing but only the name of the particular method you get here, the service name. And last thing is nothing but result. Result initially empty. Result initially is what? Empty. Whatever the response we got from the server, that response will store into this result object. Okay. Now, so this is the logic, basically converting your, okay, for web service we have to pass some input parameters, right? SOAP object request is equals to new SOAP object of request.add property. For web service, if you want to add, if you want to send any parameters, see, this is a web service. This is a service name. GetCity weather by zip is a service. What is the input we had to pass for this one? What is the input we had to pass to get the data for this web service method? We had to pass the input, we had to pass zip, we had to pass. What is the input? Zip is the input for this web service method. And the response you'll get in which format you'll get the response? In a string format will get the response. What is the input? Zip is a input. So we have to specify here request dot add property of zip is the input. Request dot add property of what? Zip is the input. Okay, and what type of data it is? It is a string type of data. Okay, it should be same, boss. Whatever the name input parameter is there here, we have to specify the same name. We have to specify here zip. Okay, and we created a method we created called request whether by zip is a method. So what is the input parameter here? Zip code, meaning user is going to give the zip code here. It's a type of what? It's a string type of data. For example, if you have one more parameter, if you want to pass two parameters, if you want to pass not only zip code, along with the zip code, even I want to pass a country name also I want to pass. At that time, if you want to add one more request here, we are having only one input parameter. That's why we added only one property. If you have one more thing, if you have, just specify request dot add property of specify the key comma value. Like this, you can add multiple values. You can add like this. You can add what? Multiple values. Request dot add property of zip and specify the zip code here. So that's it. Internally, this is what the process. Internally, this is the logic which is used to convert this entire process. This is the logic. SOAP serialization means we discussed. Here, what is meant by SOAP serialization? Converting your first in place of the SOAP object is there, right? Here, at this place, it's going to convert. It's going to convert your object. It's going to convert into an XML format. Object will be converted into what? An XML format. Next, what is the second step? See here. Next, what is the next one? SOAP serialization. SOAP serialization means converting the XML into SOAP XML process. This process is called as what? SOAP serialization. Converting your XML into SOAP XML. This process is called as what? SOAP serialization. Next, after this, we'll put this SOAP XML file. We'll put into which one? We'll put the SOAP XML into. We'll put into HTTP request. We'll put. That's what here we are doing. After converting the XML into SOAP XML, we are putting that SOAP XML file. We are putting into SOAP serialization, converting XML to SOAP XML. Next, we are putting that SOAP XML file. We are putting into HTTP request. We are putting that SOAP XML. We are putting into what? HTTP request. We are putting. So HTTP transport dot call SOAP action, which web service you want to call, and we are sending that SOAP body. This envelope means nothing but the SOAP XML file. Okay, HTTP transport dot call, meaning we are sending this SOAP XML file. We are sending this SOAP XML file to the web service. We are sending in a HTTP request. That's what I told, right? This SOAP XML file will be put into the HTTP request, and then this HTTP request will transfer over the network. This HTTP request will transfer over the network. From the server, we'll get the response. We'll get from the server in a which object again? Meaning automatically from the server, it's going to receive the SOAP XML. They are going to receive from the SOAP XML. We'll get the XML file. We'll receive. Meaning the whole response is available in the string object now. At this statement, SOAP object result is equals to envelope.body.in. By using this statement, from the server, we'll get the response. We'll get from the server in a XML format. We'll get the response from the server. From the server, we'll get the response in a XML. Okay, you don't worry about this logic because this logic is common for any service. So store this logic at somewhere. So whenever you have a requirement of communicating with the web service, SOAP service, just use this class. That's it, SOAP request. What are the parameters are going to change? Only these four parameters is going to change. What is the web service URL? What is the SOAP action, method name, and namespace? Only these four parameters will change. That's it. And the input parameters will change. That's it. These four parameters will change, and these parameters will change. That's it. Remaining this entire logic is same. Remaining this entire logic is what? It's same. Okay. So now here, okay, we created a class we created for communicating with the SOAP service. We created a class we created for communicating with what? The SOAP service. Okay. So now in your activity class, the main activity.java, whenever we create a button, we created called get weather, and we configured the click event also. We configured get weather. So here, whenever user clicks the get weather button, we had to hit the server. We had to hit. So here, for that, we create a class called SOAP request is a class. SOAP request is equals to new SOAP request. SOAP request is equals to what? New SOAP request, and request dot here we created method we created. Here we create a method, right? In this SOAP request class, we create a method we created. What is the method name? Request whether by zip is a method. What is the method name? Request whether by zip is a method. We had to pass a zip code. We had to pass. For this method, we had to pass what? The zip code we had to pass as an input parameter. From where we will get the zip code? We'll get that zip code. We'll get from the edit text component. We'll get the zip code. Okay. So we'll get the zip code. We'll get from edit text component. We'll get the zip code. So here, let's get the UI component from edit text. Edit text et1 is equals to edit text. There is a method called find uv by id art.id. We created this text box. We created in the XML file. Just I'm getting the zip code. I'm getting from the text box component. SOAP request is equals to new SOAP request. Request dot request whether by zip is a method, and write et1 dot text. Meaning user is going to give the zip code in the text box. User is going to give the zip code in the text box. I am giving that. I'm giving that zip code. I'm passing as an input parameter for this request whether by zip method. Okay, what is the return type of this method? See here, what is the return type of this request whether by zip method? Return type of this request whether by zip method is nothing but string is a return type. What is the return type? String is a return type of this request whether by zip method. Okay. So now here, hold this response into one string variable. Hold this response into what? One string variable. String, let's take I'm specifying result. String result is equals to request.getWhether by zip. We are passing the zip code. We are passing as an input parameter. Okay. So shall we test the application? We already written that web service calling logic. We written in the request whether by zip method. Just we are calling that method. We are calling wherever we have a requirement of calling this web service. Return type of this method is nothing but string, meaning nothing but whatever the response we got from the server in XML format, that XML, the entire XML data is held into this string variable, and it is returning that string object. It is returning. Okay. Let's run the application first. And first thing is we are making an internet call. So server call. So first in the Android manifest.xml, let's run the emulator meanwhile. So first in the manifest.xml file, we had to add a permission. We had to add in manifest.xml, that is internet, because we are accessing the internet we are accessing. So Android manifest.xml. So in your application, before the application tag, let's add this permission, users permission. Android colon name is equals to android.permission.internet we required. Permission.internet. So we had to add this permission. We had to add in the manifest.xml file. This is the first thing. Okay. Now we'll test the application. We'll test. So it's creating the AVD. We'll wait for 2 minutes. So now the AVD is started. Let's run the application. We'll see now. Let's run the app. Okay. Let's open this Android monitor tool, because here it's going to give the error information, right? So if you get any error, here it's going to write that error information. It's going to write here. Okay, AVD is created. Let's run the app. Okay, we got the output we got, right? So I'll give a zip code. I'll give the zip code. And before going to click this get weather button, first I clear the log I cleared and click on the get weather button. First, see what will happen. Once if you click the get weather button, see we got exception we got. See what is the exception? What is the exception name? Network on main thread exception. We already discussed this concept. We already discussed network on main thread exception. When you will get this exception and what is the solution for this? Meaning it is telling boss you are making a network call you are making in the activity thread. So where you have to make the network calls? You forgot, huh? We discussed a concept, right? There is a concept called asynchronous task. Okay, if you are making any network calls, if you are making the activity thread will not, if any logic is taking some time to process, the activity thread will not wait to complete the process. To wait that existing activity thread, either you had to create a separate thread you had to create to execute the long operations, or you had to create an asynchronous task you had to create. We discussed or not asynchronous task concept? Okay, so we discussed that asynchronous task concept we discussed. So what is the first step for creating an asynchronous task? Have you remembered or you forgot? What is the first step for creating an asynchronous task? We had to create a class. We had to create what? A class we had to create. Let's take my task, or let us take weather task. Weather task extends what? Extends asynchronous task. This is the first step for creating an asynchronous task. Create a class with subtype of asynchronous task. We had to pass three parameters. We had to pass. It's a generic class, but even it's not required also. This is the first step. If you want to create input, progress, and result. So we had to create a class with subtype of asynchronous task. We had to create a class. This is the first step for creating an asynchronous task. This asynchronous task is having three major methods. One is on pre-execute. Second thing is do in background. Third thing is on post execute. Okay. So one abstract method is there. Abstract method is nothing but definitely we have to provide the implementation for that method. It contains an abstract method called do in background. So let's provide the implementation for do in background. Just, or it is showing some error, right? So once if you select this error, once if you select, it's showing the error mark here. So once if you put the cursor in that error mark, automatically show you what is the solution for this. It contains an abstract class. Do in background is abstract method. So we have to provide the implementation. We have to provide for the do in background method. Okay. So error is nothing but you cannot make the network calls you cannot make in the activity thread. network calls you cannot make in the activity thread. We had to write that network call logic. We had to write in the asynchronous task. We had to write. This is a network logic basically. Here we are calling the server. We are calling. This is a network call. Let's move this network call logic into which method? Into doing background method. Let's move the network logic into which method? Into doing background method. Let's move the logic into which method? Into doing background method. So from here, let's execute the asynchronous task. Whether task is equals to new weather task dot execute is a method. We created asynchronous task but that asynchronous task will not execute automatically. That asynchronous task will not execute what? Automatically, it will not execute the asynchronous task. It will not execute automatically. From activity thread, wherever you have a requirement of executing the asynchronous task, we have to execute the asynchronous task. We have to execute. Whenever user clicks the get weather button, we return the network logic in the asynchronous task. We are executing that asynchronous task. We are executing. Okay. So here it's going to hit the web service. It's going to hit. Okay. From the service, you got the response we got from the service. But this result object is there, right? I'll store this result object globally, meaning before this doing background method. Because why I'm storing this a global variable? Because see, once the loading process is completed, this logic is going to be called at the time of loading the data. This logic is going to be called at the time of what? Loading the data. Once the data loading process is completed, it's going to call a method called onPostExecute is a method. In the asynchronous task, there is one more method called onPostExecute is a method. Once the data loading process is completed, it's going to call the onPostExecute method. In this onPostExecute method, we store the entire response. We stored into one string variable. We stored the entire response. That is result. Okay. In the onPostExecute method, we'll print the response. We'll print system.out.println. System.out.println. Okay. Specify the result. System.out.println. Specify what? Result. Okay, why we are not writing the logic here? Because this doing background method is going to be called at the time of loading the data. Okay, once the data loading process is completed, it's going to call the onPostExecute method. After loading the entire data, it's going to call the onPostExecute. Okay, in the onPostExecute method, just we are printing that response. What are the response we got from the server? That entire response we stored into one string variable. We stored the entire response called result. So in the onPostExecute method, we are printing that result. We are printing. That's it. And this asynchronous task will not execute automatically. Wherever you have a requirement of calling the asynchronous task, just execute that asynchronous task from your activity thread. Okay. And so one more thing also we had to add, even if you write that network logic in the asynchronous task also, still you will not get the response. You will not get from the server. We had to add one more statement. We had to add in the onCreate method, that is strict_mode.thread_policy. strict_mode.thread_policy. Policy is equals to strict_mode.thread_policy.builder.build. It's not a new concept. We already discussed this concept. We already discussed asynchronous task concept. Builder.build.permit all. Okay. So first we had to create the object for strict_mode.thread_policy class. We had to create an object. Okay. Next, strict_mode.thread_policy is a method of policy. Okay. So once if you specify this statement, then only asynchronous task will work. Otherwise, asynchronous task logic will not execute. Okay. So now let's run the application and see in the what we are doing here. We are executing the asynchronous task. That network calling logic we created in asynchronous task. Once the response we got from the server, it's going to call the on post execute method. In the on post execute method, we are printing that response. We are printing in a console. System.out.println means it's going to print the output in the console. It's going to print, meaning in Android monitor. So once if we get the confirmation, like we got the response from the server in a XML, then we'll write the logic to read the data from XML. Okay. Let's run the app. I don't know whether you are practicing or not. At least practice these concepts, web service, XML and all, because in the industry 90% of the every mobile application developer is this one only, making a request to the server, get the response in XML or JSON, show that XML or JSON data to the user in which format you want to show to the user. Okay, so we got the app response. We got first. I'll clear this log. I'll clear first. I cleared the log. I cleared. Okay, so click on this get weather button. Before that, specify a zip code. We'll specify any zip code. We'll specify US cities zip codes. 99501 is one zip code, right? Okay, let's specify the zip code here. 99501. So click on this get weather button. See here what will happen. We got the response from the server. We got the response. We got the response we got from the server. Okay, success to response city phone state AK city we got. Meaning we got the weather information we got here. We got the weather information we got the temperature, we got the relative humidity, we got the temperature we got 38, we got the humidity we got the weather information we got from the server. Pressure, visibility is 10 miles. Okay, it's a wind chill remarks. So we got the weather information we got from the server. Okay, this weather information, whatever the response we got from the server, this information we had to show to the user. We got the weather information we got from the server. This information we had to show what? We had to show to the user. We had to show this information. We had to show the information. We had to show what? To the user. We had to show this information. Okay. So we'll see that part tomorrow. Tomorrow session we'll see that part. We got the response we got from the server. In a XML format, we got the response from the server. So let's complete up to this, practice up to this. Okay. So let's try to understand this SOAP request class. Okay. So let's practice up to this. We got the response we got from the server. Now in the tomorrow's class, so we'll see how to read the data from this response. Okay. So any queries? Any queries in the today's class? So first I'll send you this project. I'll send you. You can download that SOAP request class you can get, as well as that library file whatever I sent. That KSOAP library file also you can find in that same project. Just one second. Okay. Let's practice up to this. Try